Wait, is that you, Tiana? A high-pitched voice reached my ears. No way, that couldn't be. Oh, I knew it. Tiana, long time no see. A man and a woman, waving their hands, approached us as we shopped. It was my sister Jody and Mike, who once was my fiancé.
Jody, why are you here?
Oh, did I not mention it? Mike got transferred here. We live in a high-rise condo nearby. On contrary, you look rather poor. Jody sized up Ethan from head to toe as she spoke. Indeed, from Jody's perspective, Ethan in his work clothes might look that way. But then suddenly my husband spoke up. By high-rise condo, do you mean that one between this mall and the station?
What?
That high-rise condo is mine, actually. Ethan said it matter-of-factly, without any hint of arrogance.
What did you just say?
Well, if we're talking about high-rises around here, that's the only one, right? So, it's mine.
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. There was a plot of land we've had for a while, and when we built the high-rise on it, it sold beyond our wildest dreams. The land value skyrocketed, and now the taxes are a nightmare. Ethan said this and then invited the two to our farm. He got in the car and immediately called home.
Oh, hello, Mom?
It's me. Yes, I've finally caught them, so it's time to execute that plan. It seemed something was happening without my knowledge. My name is Tiana. I'm a housewife with 2 children, married to Ethan, who is 4 years older than me. We're living happy days running a farm. But my life before marrying my current husband, my life was always somebody stealing something from me. I was born the middle child among 3 sisters. Jody, my sister who is 3 years older, has been adorable, dexterous, and quick-witted since she was young, and has always been the pride of our parents. She always had good grades without trying much and was always the star in elementary and middle school. On the other hand, I had a plain face that didn't resemble Jody's at all. Mom, Lenore, always said to me, "You're plain and not eye-catching, so there's nothing exciting about dressing you up." Saying that, she would unconditionally buy new clothes one after another just for Jody. I wasn't developing much physically, so I was always given Jody's hand-me-downs. Our elementary school didn't have uniforms, and I was always told by everyone in class that my clothes were too flashy and didn't suit me. I was often asked why I wore things that didn't suit me, but I hated to admit that I had no other choice. But probably, my friends had been told something by their parents, too. Eventually, they stopped asking anything. I wasn't outstanding in my studies either, and Dad, Isaac, often sighed and said to me, "Why don't you try to be a bit more like Jody in your studies?" Even so, from around upper elementary school, I was not only doing my homework but also making sure to do my previews and reviews properly. I was well aware that I was slow, which is why I thought I should do what I could properly. But that didn't mean I could get good grades right away. I grew up sighing a lot, and eventually, it was time to think about further education. "You'll only go as far as high school." Dad declared that to me.
Huh? Why?
"You don't have good grades, and that should be enough, right?" The age difference between us was the problem. The 3-year gap meant that our education phases overlapped. The cost for both of us would come at the same time. As a result, Jody went to a private high school she wanted, and I was purely public. Later on, "I want to go to a private college in Boston," Jody said. Boston was a plane ride away. Plus, the cost of living there was on a whole different level. Living alone in such a place. By then, it had already been decided by our parents that they would cut costs on me. It might have even meant that they wanted me to start working as soon as possible and contribute financially to the household. And my youngest sister, Risa, for years my junior, often just watched me silently without saying anything. With days filled with nothing but sighs, I didn't have anything special I wanted to do, so after high school, I got a job at a local agricultural cooperative. I was essentially an office worker. And it was in a very rural area. The people I dealt with were far from fashionable. Some carried an old-fashioned vibe, while others were oddly flamboyant, making every day monotonous, but it suited me. If it were Jody,
I'd rather die.
that's probably what she would say. And before I knew it, 7 years had flown by, and in this workplace where people marry young, I was treated like a veteran at just 25. That's when I met a man. At a party, I was invited to buy a younger colleague, and that's where I met Mike, a salesperson from one of our clients. Surprisingly, we hit it off and started dating almost immediately. Our relationship was unbelievably smooth, and he proposed in less than a year. We were planning to marry 6 months later. But around the time we were making wedding plans, Jody, who was supposed to have been working at a corporation after graduating from college, quit her job and came back home.
I can't stand it at that company anymore.
Well, if you say so, then it must be true.
You must be tired. Just take it easy.
And so, my parents spent their days giving Jody an allowance, taking her out, and having a great time doing absolutely nothing every day. Then, one day.
What? Tiana, you're getting married?
Yes, that's right.
As your sister, I need to see what kind of guy he is at least once.
Saying that, Jody flashed an unpleasant smile.
I don't need for you to check. Huh? You can't listen to what I say.
Saying that, she grabbed my hair and yanked my cheek hard. In the end, Jody came along to the discussion at the wedding venue. Despite the many decisions that needed to be made, Mike was somewhat distracted that day. I had a bad feeling, and a few days later, Jody bluntly told me,
Mike will be mine.
"But the wedding venue has already been decided." When I retorted, my parents sided with Jody. "Oh, it's simple, just switch you out for Jody."
Exactly. The ceremony itself doesn't change, and we haven't sent out the invitations yet.
I couldn't understand what they were saying. Were they planning to use the wedding, for which I had also paid half the expenses, for Jody and Mike instead? I confronted Mike with intensity, which was unusual for me because I'm normally a calm person. "I'm sorry, but I have to take responsibility." It seemed he couldn't refuse Jody's advances. I was shocked to realize he was that kind of person, but I couldn't forgive Jody even more. But just because I couldn't forgive her didn't mean I could do anything about it at that moment. Especially since my parents were unequivocally on Jody's side. If that was the case, there was nothing I could do.
Then you should just leave.
By then, Risa, who had graduated from a local university, said to me, "You don't have to stay here forever. You will continue losing things staying here." Her words changed something inside me. I realized there was no reason I had to stay here. "Don't worry about me. I'm good at getting by." With those words, Risa encouraged me. I immediately informed my boss about the sudden cancellation of my marriage and discussed resigning. My boss was surprised and listened to the whole story up to that day. Then, instead of resigning, he suggested a transfer. He said it would be a waste to let go of someone who had worked as diligently as I had and who had a knack for dealing with the farmers. I gratefully accepted the offer and moved out, taking only my personal belongings with me before their wedding. Living alone and in a new workplace, I finally felt like I could breathe easily, away from that family. Although more rural than where my family's home was, my new place was still in a significant regional city around here. Perhaps because I felt more at ease, I started socializing more with my colleagues. And then there was another party, but I wasn't keen on thinking about marriage again anytime soon. However, a colleague insisted. This time, they specifically asked for you to come. So, I reluctantly decided to attend. The guests this time were heirs to neighboring farms. That's where I was introduced to my current husband, Ethan, who had been interested in me for a while. I knew his face as one of my company's clients, but nothing more. With some encouragement from my colleague, I decided to give it a shot, and Ethan turned out to be a fun and hearty person. He took me to his home several times.
Wow, amazing! You say that, but it's pretty standard around here.
Their farm was vast, half livestock and half crops. He had a big family who were incredibly open-hearted. Whenever I visited, they'd serve fresh, delicious food, and there were always smiles all around. Noticing that I was always somewhat puzzled by their family dynamics, they casually asked why.
I'm just surprised to see a family that gets along so well.
The people who jumped at this conversation listened as I explained my past and about Jody as calmly as possible. Then, my father-in-law Arnold, mother-in-law Nicola, and brother-in-law Ralph said,
What's with that? Not just the sister, but her partner and your parents too. You did the right thing by leaving.
Exactly. So, come stay with us. I had always felt guilty in my heart for being abandoned by a man. But this generous family seemed to harbor straightforward anger towards the unreasonable parents, Jody and Mike. Although I wondered about immediately moving in with them. Yes. I somehow found myself saying so. I hardly had time to wonder if I could really be a farmer's wife. When I called my parents to inform them,
Marry a farmer! I'm too embarrassed to even consider attending.
They even refused to attend the wedding. Hearing this, Nicola snatched the phone from me.
Well, we have no need for your side of the family either. Tiana is our daughter now.
And retorted with refreshing vigor.
What's with those people?
Tiana, you don't have to do anything for them anymore. Actually, I've been sending them money every month. If I stop, they might say something again.
You were doing that!
My in-laws were half amazed and half angry, nodding to each other as if they'd made a decision. Risa contacted me. Let me know when you set the date for the ceremony, she said. In the end, the only relative of mine who came was Risa. When Risa got married, I made sure not to run into my parents and went to celebrate her wedding. Incidentally, I continued working at my job after getting married because
it's impossible to start working on the farm right away.
Both Ethan and my in-laws had said so. We have different physical strengths. It's better to do a job that suits you. My presence at the cooperative also helped streamline the workflow. Nonetheless, those days came to an end rather quickly. I was pregnant. I had one, and then another a year later. It felt like I could keep having more, so I quit my job to focus on childcare, housework, and helping with the finances. Though the farm life meant early mornings and late nights, having someone always around made childcare much less stressful than what I heard from those in the city. And, of course, the delicious food. We cooked in large quantities, and the vegetables and milk were simply delicious. The children ate well and ran around a lot, growing up healthy alongside the children of Ralph, my brother-in-law, who had married earlier. Ethan was somewhat of a leader among the young successors in the area, so I began participating in their gatherings. Free from comparisons and the watchful eyes of my parents, I finally felt true happiness. One day, urged by my in-laws to take a break, just the two of us, Ethan and I headed to the mall.
Really? Are you sure?
We have some things we'd like for you to pick up anyways. Nicola sent us off, probably considering that we rarely got time alone. Just being around this family's kindness felt incredibly healing. We leisurely set out in the car and headed towards the shopping mall. As we reached this area, we began to see scenery that fits the description of an urban area. As we walked through the vast mall, loading our cart with the items we were asked to get and chatting. "Wait. Is that you? Tiana?" A high-pitched voice reached my ears. No way, that couldn't be. Oh, I knew it. Tiana, long time no see. A man and a woman approached us, waving their hands. Jody. I murmured softly, gripping the cart handle. Well, long time no see. Standing beside her was Mike. He seemed to have aged quite a bit, though.
Jody, why are you here?
Oh, did I not mention it? Mike got transferred here. We live in the high-rise condo nearby. Compared to that, you look rather poor. Jody sized up Ethan from head to toe as she spoke. Indeed, to Jody's eyes, Ethan in his work clothes might look that way. And I was dressed in my everyday clothes too. But then suddenly my husband spoke up.
By high-rise condo, do you mean the one between this mall and the station?
Yes, that one. It's highly popular with people from outside the area too, and we had to wait quite a while to finally get a spot. But I guess that's none of your concern, living all the way out on your farm, right?
What? That high-rise condo is actually mine.
Ethan said it casually, as if it were the most natural thing in the world.
What did you just say? Well, if we're talking about high-rises around here, that's the only one, right? So, it's mine. What do you mean? Exactly as I said. There was a plot of land we've owned for a while, and we decided to build on it. The sales went beyond our wildest dreams. Thanks to that, the land value skyrocketed, and now the taxes are a nightmare.
Taxes. I remember, while helping with the accounting work, I sometimes found unusually high property taxes on some items. I wondered why, since the taxes in our area weren't that significant. So that was the reason.
Is that so? Yes, it is. Would you like to come over to our place? What?
I looked at Ethan.
Is that really okay?
Jody's attitude changed suddenly.
Hey, it's a bit sudden to impose, isn't it? What are you talking about? They've kindly invited us. It would be rude not to go.
The shopping was put on hold, and we decided to take out our cars. Back in the car, Ethan, sitting in the driver's seat, immediately called home.
Oh, hello? Mom, it's me. Yes, I've finally brought them, so let's proceed with that plan.
What could he be talking about? After those brief words, Ethan hung up.
A plan? Yeah. Well, we've had our own thoughts about things.
I had no idea you owned a high-rise condo.
Well, it's kind of like insurance.
Ethan explained to me.
Farming depends a lot on nature, and we can face various challenges. Our family just happened to own that land in the area for generations.
And you built a high-rise on it?
Sort of half and half. Not the entire thing, but for people coming from outside, the view is considered quite spectacular.
That's for sure. Even if the view is just fields and mountains, their vastness provides a spectacle with each season. It must be appealing for wealthy people coming from outside.
Would you like to live there?
I immediately shook my head.
I love our current home. Everyone's there. Me too.
Saying that, we drove home. Along the way, Ethan shared a surprising strategy with me.
Can we really do that? You know our family's unity, right? And our ability to carry out plans steadily.
That's true. But as I glanced at Jody's car following us in the rearview mirror, I wondered if it would really work. Upon arriving home, "Oh, come on in." My in-laws greeted Jody's couple at the entrance with their usual, no, even brighter smiles.
"Arnold, is it okay to take time off?"
At this hour, there should still be work to do in the fields and with the cows.
It's fine. We heard we were having important guests.
Jody, entering the house, looked around. It is indeed spacious. Seemingly surprised by its size. There are many people and households living here. We ate together, but each family has its own space.
Well, I haven't met anyone from Tiana's family except for Risa. I didn't even know she had another sister.
Arnold laughed heartily at that. Meanwhile, I was in the kitchen preparing something for the guests.
"Tiana, it's better if you stay out of sight for now." "What?" "Just watch from around here for a bit."
Nicola gestured to a chair in the kitchen, wondering what she meant. I sat as told and watched the living room situation from my seat. Wondering what was happening, I sat as instructed and watched the scene in the living room unfold. Arnold and Ethan were sitting there.
It's not much, but...
with Nicola offering homemade sweet potatoes and pumpkin pies to Jody and her husband. From where Nicola directed me, I had a clear view of the other side. And they couldn't see me. Arnold, opening a beer, casually mentioned,
"So, you're living in our high-rise, right?"
Yes. Speaking of the high-rise. Arnold signaled Ethan with a nod.
"Hey, show them that thing we have."
Implying something.
That. "Just a moment,"
Ethan said and retrieved an envelope from a shelf.
"Regarding the high-rise, we have something, well, specifically for Mike, that we'd like you to see." "What might that be?"
Mike was puzzled by Ethan's words.
"This right here."
Handing over a large document envelope to Mike, who hesitated before pulling out its contents. What he found was an album sheet filled with numerous photos.
"What's this?"
Mike's face tensed as he looked up.
"Well, Huey mentioned we've had some suspicious activity caught on our security cameras lately. We had it investigated a bit."
Mike silently flipped through the album sheets, eventually dropping them in shock.
"What is this? What on earth, Jody, who is this person?"
Mike asked Jody with a groaning voice, puzzled by the situation. Just as I was wondering what was going on, Nicola silently tapped my shoulder and handed me the stack of photos.
"What?"
I almost let out a loud gasp and quickly covered my mouth with my hand. The photos showed Jody inviting an unknown man into her room. The two of them visible through a window. And various scenes of them entering a hotel during the day and leaving separately later on.
"How come these are here?" "Keep it a secret."
Nicola seemed somewhat amused by the situation. Looking back at the living room, I saw Mike glaring at Jody with a furious expression.
"Is this why you've always said you didn't want children yet? So you could do things like this?" "What? No. That's not true. That's not me." "Well, the man said he came to see you. We had it confirmed with Huey."
Ethan pressed on, cornering Jody.
"Then what about these other photos?"
"Well, affairs are definitely not good, are they?" Arnold commented casually.
"After taking Tiana's man, you still wanted another? And how old are you again?" "Tiana said you're 3 years older, right?" "Tiana. Did Tiana have these taken?" "That's not the point here."
"Thank you." Mike tried to return the envelope to Ethan.
"Oh, keep it. You might still need what's inside." "What?"
Mike looked inside again and pulled out a large piece of paper. This might indeed be necessary.
Wait a minute. Divorce papers. What's this all of a sudden?
Jody panicked, but Mike began to speak in a low, matter-of-fact tone.
You told me to take responsibility that time, remember? You said you missed your period. I thought I had gotten you pregnant, so I decided to marry you. But look now. Look now, what? It seems I had a drunken fling with you. I didn't remember it, but there was evidence. So, considering what happened later, I thought I should take responsibility. But you weren't pregnant, and you kept saying you didn't want kids now. How old are you again? You're the same age as me, right? I'm only 35. I believed you when you said you wanted to focus on raising one child properly. That's why I worked hard, improved my sales performance, got transferred. And that high-rise condo, I bought it on a loan because you insisted, waiting for an available unit in the sky, while you always complained about the lower floors being boring.
So that's what had been happening. I'm tired of it all. Saying this, Mike took a pen and started filling out the divorce papers.
Wait, what are you doing?
Remember the wedding? Your parents did whatever they wanted, making it an embarrassment. No one came, not even my own parents. I never knew. Even now, my dad and mom haven't forgiven me. You were even happy you didn't have to deal with your in-laws. You let such unfortunate things happen? That must have been tough. I was even told not to come to my brother's wedding. Mike said this with a twisted face. Perhaps the reason he looked so aged was due to stress. I've had enough of this situation. You're probably tired of me too, right?
That's not true. I can't live without you.
You only want me for my money. You haven't worked since we got married. But I don't care anymore. He then thrust the divorce papers in front of Jody. Here.
No.
If you don't want to, that's fine. I'm going home. By the way, this envelope is from a detective agency, right? Yes, we had everything thoroughly investigated for the safety of the apartment we own. These are solid proofs. Thank you. Mike said this and gave a slight bow.
Please let me know the expenses later. I'll pay in full. And Jody, I'll be claiming compensation from you.
I don't have that kind of money. Faced with the realistic demand for money, Jody panicked. You can go back to your hometown and make money off men easily enough. I'm busy from now on, so I'm leaving.
Leaving? What about me?
Apologize to Tiana and ask for her help. Goodbye. With the envelope in hand, Mike left the scene. Then, when he looked at me, he slightly bowed his head.
Wait a minute.
Jody hurriedly stood up and tried to follow Mike, who was heading outside. We quietly followed the two.
Wait. Don't leave me behind.
Perhaps due to her usual lack of exercise? Or maybe because of her high heels, Jody stumbled and fell. Still, she tried to get up and continue chasing.
Where's our car?
This time, it was Mike's voice that rose in confusion. If you mean the car that was here, we had to move it because it was blocking the way. Ralph appeared in the distance, riding a tractor with mechanical noises accompanying him.
What? Then where is it now?
Over there. He pointed in a direction, and their car was visible a few hundred meters away. Mike headed towards it, walking briskly with irritation. Jody, gasping for breath, desperately followed him. But then, our dogs ran towards Jody.
What's with these dogs?
Sorry. They're very friendly with guests. Ethan called out leisurely as he came outside. If you run away hastily, they'll just chase you more. But it seemed Jody couldn't hear his voice.
No! Stop it!
Jody might not have disliked dogs, but she probably wasn't used to ones that ran around outdoors. She hated getting dirty. And our dogs, always running around the farm, were full of energy.
Hey, you! Mike! Help me!
Mike glanced back at Jody's call but soon turned forward and continued walking towards his car. The dogs, increasingly excited, approached Jody. To someone not fond of dogs, their playful approach might seem monstrous. And I watched the scene from a distance.
No! Stop it!
Jody cried out as she stumbled and tried to move forward, only to fall heavily again. And let out a scream from the depths of her being.
What is this? It stinks!
She had landed in a heap of fluffy cow manure compost, which was probably warm and soft. Oh dear, are you hurt? Arnold's carefree voice chimed in. 2 dogs were on top of the fallen Jody, licking her face. Jody seemed too stunned to even cry out. Understandably overwhelmed by her sudden plunge into the compost while dressed in her fancy outing clothes. Her entire body was submerged from head to toe, making it hard to find a spot that wasn't covered. The dogs, undeterred, continued to nuzzle and bark at Jody. I guess I have no other choice. Seeing the dazed Jody, Mike reluctantly drove his car closer, sighing at her sorry state.
Come on, let's go! We shouldn't trouble this household any further.
Perhaps Mike couldn't bear to watch Jody's pitiful state silently. He grabbed a relatively clean part of her clothing and tossed her into the back seat of his car. Well, that makes sense. Wouldn't want her sitting next to you. Still, it's going to be a mess later. We watched from a distance, half in sympathy, as Mike bowed to us and drove away. That evening, Huey from the apartment complex contacted us.
That was a terrible smell.
Is that so? That's unfortunate. Make sure to charge the cleaning fees.
Of course. Even though this area is known for livestock, this apartment near the station has many residents not accustomed to it. Today was chaotic. Not just the entrance and hallway, but even the parking lot was affected by the smell.
Listening on speaker mode, I was half amused and half exasperated by Ethan's laughter, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Honestly, living in this environment, I'd forgotten how appalling it would be to emerge covered in compost in the middle of the city. Especially for someone like Jody, who took pride in her appearance.
Especially the complaints from the upper floors are severe. We'll address it as quickly as possible.
Right. Oh, and that couple is probably going to get divorced. Prompt action might even help push that along.
Right. If they could leave, that would be great for us.
After hanging up, the family around me gave thumbs-up signs. It seemed this was a long time in the making. Apparently, the very act of them moving in was influenced by our family. In this region, companies are often connected to agriculture in some way. And there's frequent communication among farmers. My new family, upon learning about my circumstances, had been keeping tabs on my sister and my parents. They had circulated information about a second-floor unit in the high-rise they owned becoming available at a discounted price. They knew Jody would jump at the word high-rise.
Still, we couldn't predict when we'd meet them again.
Ethan explained this to me. So, you were planning to act upon meeting them?
Exactly.
The family flashed genuinely warm smiles at me. And even the dogs that had come close barked in agreement. Oh, these people. I couldn't help but laugh. Later, Risa informed me that Jody had officially divorced.
It was quite a spectacle.
Risa reported, laughing heartily. Risa and her husband are currently in charge of the family home, from which I moved out when I got married. It seems that the wedding, which was carried out with a different partner than originally planned, significantly tarnished our parents' reputation. Seizing this opportunity, Risa, I'm sorry for our good-for-nothing parents. Apparently, she managed to win over those around her and take control of the household by adopting such an attitude. Into this scenario, Jody attempted to return after her affair-induced divorce.
There's no way I could let her back into the house. After all the effort we put into keeping our parents in line, bringing back a parasite like that is out of the question.
Risa made it clear to everyone that Jody was not welcome back home.
Your everyday behavior really matters, doesn't it?
So, what happened to Jody?
I don't know. She should be the one to pay the compensation, right? Oh, and apparently, the reason Jody quit her previous job was due to her incompetence and some inappropriate romantic entanglements.
This was news to me.
Since then, she's been a housewife, and with that gap plus another divorce due to an affair, what kind of job could she possibly get? Maybe only something in the nighttime industry. But that might actually suit her.
Mike had mentioned something similar.
You know, Tiana, there were times I got frustrated looking at you. Given how terrible our parents and sister were, this outcome was inevitable, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right? That's why I took them as a lesson of what not to be from early on. Thanks to that, I now hold the reins in our family.
I see. I found myself oddly convinced.
You can rest easy now. Forget about us here and enjoy being pampered and happy there.
Yes, thank you.
I'll come visit you next time.
I'll be waiting. Almost a year later. Slightly later than promised, Risa visited our home.
Congratulations on your third child, Tiana.
Indeed, I had become pregnant and given birth to a third child since then. Today was a celebration for that.
Thanks.
I heard you're expecting your second?
Yes. But we're stopping at 2. How about you, Tiana? Planning on more?
Yes. It's easier to raise them here without any trouble, and they grow up healthy. Indeed, the older children were taking care of the younger ones, and the little ones were always looking for something they could help with. I had been slightly worried about turning out like our parents. But I felt confident that with this place and this family, we could be happy without those concerns. I truly believe so.